What's up, everyone? Welcome to Unmasked, where things are discovered, uncovered, brought to the light, and made known. I'm your host, Lamar Barrett, coming live to you from PG County, Maryland. If you're interested in finding out about the untold stories behind being a college coach, this is the show for you. Being a former assistant men's college basketball coach for 16 years, there are so many untold stories behind the life of a college basketball coach. Now, let's unmask them. Today's guest is a young and bright assistant coach with a great basketball mind, excellent talent evaluator, a future head coach in this business, in my opinion, and a native of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Bobby Jordan. Now, it's amazing because, I was talking with Bobby before the show, and I was on their Zoom the other night, and just remembered, I remember when Bobby Jordan was a freshman in high school. And I can remember when he was attending camps. I can remember when he started camp, working camp. I mean, it's amazing just to see where, Bobby came from as being a freshman in high school to now. I mean, the places he's been, and I'll read his bio a little bit, but I'm just so proud of him, happy for him. I've always thought highly of him from when he was a freshman, sophomore at Roman Catholic in Philadelphia. So, he played at Drexel University, 05 to 09 for Bruiser Flint. Had a chance to stay on with Bruiser Flint, at his alma mater from 09 to 2016. So he spent 11 years of his life at Drexel University with Bruiser Flint and some other terrific assistant coaches. He was there as the director of basketball operations for 3 years. He spent 4 years as an assistant coach at Drexel University. And then, after this 11 years he has spent at Drexel, becomes the athletic director at Girard College. And in his second year at Girard College, he becomes the head coach, did an outstanding job there. And then, he also at the same time was coaching the AAU team final in between that time, between 2016, 17, part of the spring of 18, but didn't get a chance to coach him in the summer because he had taken a job at IMG Academy down in Florida, where he's a high school coach of one of their programs, had a terrific team while he was down there in Bradenton, Florida. And then now he's, back with actually a former teammate of his, who's the head coach at Wagner, Bashir Mason. So he just finished year one at Wagner College in Staten Island, and beginning to be year number 2 once we get through this pandemic. I want to welcome to the show a longtime guy that I've admired, Bobby Jordan, the heart of Roman Catholic, heart of Drexel University. Welcome to the show, Bobby.
Lamar, thanks for having me on. Appreciate your kind words. And like you said, we go back a long way. I'm trying to make sure I'm in the middle right now, if I'm a young coach or if I'm an old coach. I asked that the other night. I was about to ask Jeff Arnold on the one Zoom that we're on, because I feel like I've been doing this a long time, but I still like to maintain my my schoolboy looks a lot of the times. I'm still able to do that.
Well, you know what I say, Bobby? If you're longer than 10 years, you're actually a long-time assistant, which you are actually, and you're young and bright. So, your combination, man, is awesome. Like I said, you've always, you've done a great job wherever you've been. And that even started when you were younger, man. And, you was always mature for your age. So no matter how young you are, you still, old. And you're not as old as us guys, but, you got an older guy spirit is what I would say. And that's why I think so many guys respect you in this business for that. And we're going to get right into it, man. We're gonna get unmasked. And, one of the first questions you thrown in the fire, you work for Bruiser Flint, you played for him, now you got to work for him. There's no handbook to being a college coach. Tell me about your first day, first week, first month after you're hired, done with orientation, done with human resources, especially when no one gives you direction, because playing for a guy is totally different than working for or with the guy. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. I mean, that was the biggest adjustment year one, especially for me, because there was still two classes of players who were in the program who I was a player with, and who I was on the court with and in practice every day as a player. Actually, we had a guy on the team at the time, Leon Spencer, who was a JUCO guy for us. He was still older than me. So some of the players were actually still older than me. And the one thing that I remember is, about Brew and talking to him those first couple weeks, those first couple months, he's just like, make sure you command respect when you're out there. He's like, these guys already respect you from what you did as a player and how you worked with them in the off season, when we weren't in any team settings. But his biggest advice to me was, command respect from the guys. And one of my biggest things to command respect from the guys was to build some sweat equity with them. I think that's really huge, is to really build that sweat equity with guys in the gym, because I always feel that your players have to know that you're going to get them better. So that was one of the biggest things that I try to do. And, when he talked about respect, that's the one avenue I wanted to go down to really gain that respect. And I'll tell you another thing that really opens your eyes when you go from player to coach. You really figure out, how long hours these guys put in on a daily basis. When you're a player, you just see guys at practice. You might see them when you come into the weight room. You don't realize, at Drexel, we practiced at 3:00. Mike Connors is in the office before 8 a.m. every single day, and he's not leaving till at least probably 7 p.m. every single day. And as a young coach, I wanted to be in there with him. I wanted to learn from him. I wanted to be one of the first people in the office, one of the last people to leave. And after a couple of weeks, I'm like, wow, I'm working 12-hour days. I didn't think that this was coaching. I thought, I knew they worked hard. I didn't know they put in so many hours every single day. There's no breaks either. Especially at Drexel, we were on a trimester system. So there's no real breaks. Our players were pretty much there all year long.
Yeah, and that's what people don't understand. You hit it right on the head. There's a lot of time, man. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but it's 12, 15-hour days. And then plus some, because who knows what could happen when you go home. There's no vacation. It's when you're on vacation, your phone is on, you're still calling recruits, trying to set up visits. Man, people have no idea. I laugh when people always ask me, when is your off season? When is your downtime? I'm like, there is no downtime. So, it is, people have no understanding. They don't get it. Like you say, you talk about coaching and they think it's just, I show up to practice and I show up to a game. No, that's definitely not it. But I thank you for that knowledge.
And what else is crazy, Lamar? And I used to get this all the time when I first started from just, people in my neighborhood or, my mom and dad's friends or whoever is that your full-time job? Yeah, that's my full-time job. That's how I get paid. This is actually really a full-time job. It was amazing to me how many people didn't realize that coaching college basketball, that's a full-time job. I wanted to tell them I put in way more hours than you put in. Of course it's a full-time job.
You're right. Because they would always, they'd be like, so do you teach a class? No, I don't teach a class. No, I don't. I'm not at the Division II level where there are people who do have to teach a class, or some guys, I think Dumph taught a class, but that's because he chose to, not because he had to. But, you're right. They always ask that. Is that your full-time job? College recruiting, man, is the lifeline of college athletics. Talk about your best and worst recruiting stories you've had over the year, because you got to get good players and good people, man, if you want to be successful in this business.
I mean, I'll start out with the best recruiting story. I was recruiting a kid when I first started. My first year, Brew puts me on the road. I'm 23 years old, and that was my biggest thing. I need to land us some players. So I started recruiting this kid out of Richmond, Virginia, by the name of Rodney Williams, who I had a little bit of connection with his AAU coach, Tony Squire, just from their time at the Hoop Group and just working there and being around them. But Rodney was really, really highly recruited. He was one of those guys, and I mess with him all the time. He would post every single offer on Twitter. He'd post every single home visit, top 10, top 8, top 5. So the whole time I'm worried, I think I'm doing a good job, but are we in there? This is only my first year. I really want to get this guy. And, every time he came out with something on Twitter, I'm checking my phone because I just want to make sure, like, I thought we were doing good. They're telling me we're doing good. We're fine. So it came down to like the first day, when you can go out in September to really go see guys. So we're going to do a home visit with him. It was like a Sunday actually. And his father is a pastor in Richmond, Virginia, has a big church. So I drive down the night before early, just to get everything, make sure I get settled into my hotel. And Brew's flying in the next day. I got to pick him up. So I tell Brew, yo, we're going to church. He's like, do they know we're coming to church? I said, they don't know we're coming. We're going to surprise them. We're going to church. So me, I grew up, like you said, I went to Roman Catholic. I went to Catholic school my whole life, and now I'm going to church in Richmond, Virginia. And we walked in, me and Brew, and the church went nuts. The church went nuts. His dad went nuts. We sat down, and Rodney was actually playing the drums during the church. So it was a really, really cool experience. After church, we went back to his house. Rodney was a big Eagles fan. Maybe that helped us in the recruiting because Brew's a huge Eagles fan. And, we had dinner. His mom cooked an unbelievable meal. We had a great home visit. And then he was coming to visit officially a couple weeks later. And actually, Brew will tell you this is the best meal he's ever had on a home visit. I was driving him back to the airport. And I think he fell asleep in the car that the food was so good. It was a long day, but he fell asleep in the car, and he said it was because the food was so good. His mom actually owns a food truck now down in Richmond, and she sells them, some great meals. But so he comes to visit 2 weeks later on his official, and he commits. But he's not announcing it for another month because, his school has this Midnight Madness, and he wanted this big thing. So that was a long 30 days because you never know with these guys. They can change their mind so easily. He wasn't going on any other visits. We were the last visit, but he wound up committing. And that was, probably my best, recruiting story is it really just showed me how hard you really got to work in recruiting. Guys, at times think that, some AAU coaches or high school coaches are just going to hand deliver you a player. Which might be the case sometimes. That might happen. But, that one really showed me that you got to work really, really hard, to land a guy, especially when you're going up against other people and other people want somebody to come to their program. So that was my best one. My worst one, I'm going to stay right here in Philadelphia because at Drexel, it was really hard to recruit Philly. It's an area that's very unique in that we have 6 Division I colleges just in one area. So, kids grow up, and I was one of those kids. You grow up and, you want to play in the Big Five. And Drexel's not in the Big Five. But while Brew was there, we had success in beating a lot of those teams throughout the years that he was there. So we were never officially in the Big Five, but we thought as a program, like, listen, we're right up there with you guys. To be good in the CAA, you had to be able to play with St. Joe's, LaSalle, Temple. You had to be able to play with those teams. You had to be able to beat them, or you weren't going to be good in the CAA. So my rival high school in Philly, Newman Goretti, had a guard who actually just finished up this year by the name of Lamar Fresh Kimball, who just did his last year at Louisville. And at the time, in his junior year, Fresh was very under-recruited. Newman's just a program that produces a lot of guards, and at times you can kind of get the wrong read on some of their guys because you're wondering, are they a point guard? Are they a shooting guard? What are they? They don't handle the ball that much. Well, at Newman, they don't handle the ball that much because there's probably 4 Division I guards on the court at one time, all the time. So Fresh was kind of a spot-up shooter, but he played for team final. Saw a lot of the stuff that he did, and we loved him. We loved Fresh. We wanted him, really bad at Drexel, and he was still getting under-recruited, and then, I'm not going to say at the last minute, but, kind of late in the recruiting process, St. Joe's jumped in. And, it was pretty much devastating to me when he committed to St. Joe's because he's the first Philly guy I went really, really hard after, and felt like we had all the connections and everything going for us. And, I remember I was down the shore and the kid called me. I was on vacation. It was right after the recruiting period. A kid called me. I was sitting on the deck down in Wagner, New Jersey, and the kid called me. And I went inside, and she wasn't my wife at the time, but she looked at me. She said, "What's wrong?" I said, "It's going to be a long day. We just lost Fresh." So that was definitely the worst one. That was definitely the worst one for me.
I feel you on that one. Bob, we talked about it before, how many hours and stuff you put in. What did you have to give up or sacrifice achieving your current level of success?
To be honest, I had to sacrifice being a college kid and having a college experience. Being a student athlete in college is great. I'm not going to say I gave up anything on that end. But in the summers, a big thing where I'm from is a lot of the kids my age and my friends growing up, they go down the shore, they have shore houses, they're partying on the beach, going to Sea Isle City, just every single summer. And for me, it was, I'm driving Rakeem Christmas in a van to Morgantown, West Virginia, my first summer. I'm driving, Franz Massenet and Tony Chenault, to somewhere in Disney because we're playing at Wide World of Sports. Or, I'm sleeping in Wolf Hall at, college in New Jersey, working at, the hoop group. And I'm pretty much there for 3 straight weeks. I'm not really going home. So those were a lot of the things I had to give up early, was kind of really just having that college experience as a kid, which was, something I knew that I was going to have to sacrifice to be able to get where I wanted to go. Because if you don't, you're going to get a late start and you're not going to maybe be able to achieve right away what you think you can achieve.
So true, Bobby. So true. Scout reports, man. We all know that you can tell who scout it is. They on the sideline during the game. They up in the guy. They're up more than anybody, yelling out play calls, yelling out actions. They prepared the team, but it's like, dang, did I prepare the team? Or things they forgot. But and then there's always that one kid who's struggling shooting, who's 2 for his last 30, decides that he wants to make 4 threes in a game. And coaches turn to you saying, "Bob, I thought he couldn't shoot." Coach, I never said that. I said he's struggling. Talk about what's your best and worst scout report you think you've had over the years.
Well, to be honest, actually, this was the first year I did scouts at Wagner. At Drexel, we had a different formula. We had 2 guys on the road at all times, and Mike Connors did a lot of the scouts. We would obviously watch the other teams and be ready for what's going on. But Mike did all the scouts. He did all the X's and O's of the team we're playing. Really involved in the walkthroughs with Brew, and also the film breakdown. So this year, was kind of my first year of really diving into scouts and doing scouts. And actually, the first scout I had this year, we're playing a non-D1 Wesley College. So I'm like going into the game, I'm like, Wesley College. I knew they played against Gwinnett Mercy, and I'm watching them on film. Gwinnett Mercy, who was a team here in Philadelphia, and they had this one kid on their team who was the 3rd leading scorer in Division III. I think he averaged close to 25 points a game. And I think you always face this as a coach when you're talking to the team and you're telling them how good a guy really is. This guy's really good. He's the 3rd leading scorer in Division III. I'm watching him on film. He gets buckets. Like, this kid can score. And I know what our guys are thinking the whole time. Coach, this is Division III. They're Wesley. They're down in Delaware. Who is this guy? And he was one of these guys. He didn't even look like a player either. He did not have the look. So the game starts, and the kid scores 10 out of their first 12 points, and they're actually semi in the game. It's only like a 6-point game, and he's feeling good. So we call timeout. I'm like, I told you guys, if he's the only way they can stay in the game. If he scores, they have no shot. We'll win by 30. And so we wound up slowly but surely ramping it up on the kid, and he actually wound up pretty much quitting in the second half. He subbed himself out, and we went on to win. But that was an eye-opening experience for me, because I always felt as a player, I always respected everybody. I never looked at, other guys and thought that they couldn't play if they had accolades or, if they had achieved some things. And I think it's a little different with kids nowadays. They get on their pedestal a little bit high. And I saw that on the EYBL when I was coaching there. Anytime we weren't playing in an EYBL event, it was, extra for me just to get the guys motivated to play, because they thought if we weren't playing somebody with a swoosh on their chest, then these guys probably can't play anyway. So, I mean, my backcourt of AJ Hogarth and Caleb Battle, they were a handful to really convince about that every time we had played. Worst scout, this year we had a difficult year, but a little bit what you said, we were playing LIU in a big game at home. We were on a losing streak, and this game would have really helped us if we won, and we go zone, and we don't play a lot of zone. We're the Bruiser Flint tree. We're man-to-man guys, and we're in your face and really making you work. But we were going zone, and they had a point guard, Jay-Sean Augusto, who had only made 4 threes going into the game all season. And we were actually up at the time, but Jay-Sean Augusto hit 4 threes in the first half against us. So I got the guys, it's almost like the reverse effect. Now I got the guys, Bob, you told us he can't shoot. So all we just kept saying to him is, guys, play the percentages. Like, he's not going to do this in the second half. And then lo and behold, in the second half, first shot, he makes another one. So now he's made more threes in this game than he has the entire year right now. So I'm sitting there on the bench like, I can't believe this. This guy, luckily, we played unbelievable that day. We went on to win. And actually, him shooting the threes helped us. They had this great inside-outside player, Raekwon Clark, who kind of got frustrated by our zone a lot and didn't have a good game. So by Augusto shooting the threes, it helped us. But also the guys were looking at me like, yo, I thought you said this kid can't shoot. And he just made more than he's made all year.
That definitely happens, Bob. That definitely happens. Biggest challenge, man, you think you've experienced since you've been a college coach?
Like, you mean in terms of, either getting in or getting out? Like, can I talk?
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest challenge, I faced as a college coach was, getting let go. Like you said, like when I started off, I thought I had a bright future. I was really young. I was 21, already on a college staff. I had been named an assistant. And I didn't know at the time, once I got named an assistant, until Zach Bovair called me. He had recently just got hired as an assistant at, I believe, Iona at the time. And he called me and he asked me how old I was. Why do you want to know how old I am? So I tell him how old I am. And he's like, oh, you're a little bit older than me. That's good. Now I'm the youngest assistant coach in the country. I thought it was you. So, I'm on my high horse. I'm an assistant in the CAA. I think it's great. I'm on my way. My trajectory is just going up, 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 up. And then at Drexel, we have a couple years where we have some bad injuries. We have some guys go down for the year, some really key players. And we kind of struggled a little bit during that time in terms of a win-loss percentage from what we were used to at the school. And just like in college basketball, somebody gets let go. So we get let go. So the biggest challenge for me at that time, and which has been my biggest challenge, is, once you get out, how do you get back in? And I think that's a challenge for everybody because, a lot of people will tell you this, when you got a polo on and you're sitting on the sidelines at, Peach Jam or one of these events, everybody wants to be your boy. Everybody wants to talk to you. The one thing I found out is you really find out who your boys are, when that goes across the ticker that your staff got let go. That's when you really find out who your boys are in this profession. And, getting out and then getting back in, that's a real challenge because I think somebody said this the other night. There's only like a little over 1,000 assistant coaching positions at the Division I level in the entire country. Now, people don't realize that about our profession is there's only 1,000 jobs. I was telling my wife this the other day. There's 1,000 people that work at the Coke plant in Philadelphia for Coca-Cola. There's 1,000 people. There's only 1,000 people that do what I do in the entire country. So to get back in once you're let go is extremely hard, and it's a humbling experience. But for me, to be honest, Lamar, it was something that I needed. It was something that I needed to happen at the time, because, like I said, I had a little, I would say, a minor ego at the time. I'm young, like I talked about. I was in a good position. I think I really needed to get brought back down to earth, and I needed to experience what we experienced to make myself better.
So I mean, I'm glad you said that, because it is a challenge to get back in if you step away or you let go, and especially, I mean, those points you brought up, and that's what young guys got to understand. I mean, you got to work your way to get back in. It's not as easy as what people think. Do you ever find that there are things about you that people misunderstand?
I'm gonna pull the Kenya Hunter here on this one, because you got me really thinking on this one.
We can come back to that. I want you to think about it.
Come back.
We'll come back to it. We're teachers, man. We're educators. You've been around it long enough. You with Brew for long enough. What do you try to teach your players, especially now you with Bosh here? He's young, who's under Brew, played for Brew. What do you try to teach your players besides basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that you really can teach guys is just preparing them for life through basketball. And, a lot of that, and it's very simple. I tell our guys all the time, a simple rule we have in our program is be on time. And for some people, at times, I don't understand why that is such a hard thing, especially for college kids. Like, why is it so hard to show up on time? Especially with cell phones. And you can set 9 different alarms to wake yourself up. Because I always tell them, like, if you don't show on time for your job, you're fired. Like, they're letting you go. Like, there's no, here we just run you. You just run. That's the consequence. In real life, it's, you're fired. You lose your job. So I think just teaching little things like that, accountability with guys and that stuff really shows them, what the real world's going to be like. Because, let's be real. Not everyone's going to go and play professionally. I think a lot of guys go into college basketball and they think, oh, I'm going to be a pro. I played Division I. It doesn't work that way. There's very limited amount of guys who go on to play professionally and make a career of it. So it's really teaching them, a lot of the accountability pieces of, being on time, treating people with respect, being able to work within a team, not just here, but on campus, being able to go into the cafeteria and develop a relationship with the people that work in there, just so, you're showing them respect, they show it to you back. So really just try to preach on a lot of those things that are going to become important for them at some point in life when basketball stops.
So true, Bob. So true. It's funny, like we keep talking about you're young, you're a long-time assistant and young, but like, what are your best and worst memories in coaching?
My best memory in coaching is actually it's the best and the worst. It happened over the course of 3 days. I'm an assistant in my first year. We're playing at Madison Square Garden, and we're playing against Arizona in the Garden. And I'm going to start off with the worst because that was the first day. So, we're playing Arizona. I think at the time they're maybe ranked in the top 10 in the country. And, we're a little under the radar. We came off a good year the year before, and we lost one guy at the time who was really important to us. But, he went on and graduated. But we had a backcourt of Franz Massenet, Chris Fouch, and Damian Lee. And we're going against, I'm going to say, Arizona. That team's got about 4 or 5 guys in the NBA right now. TJ McConnell was their starting point guard. Nick Johnson, who was actually one of their better players. Raleigh Jefferson, Rondé, Hollis Jefferson, Caleb Tarczewski, Aaron Gordon was on the team, and we jump on them. It's 18-4 to start the game. Timeout. Everybody's like, who are these guys? who are these guys? So we go into halftime with the lead. We still have the lead with about 8 minutes left in the game, and Damian Lee goes down with a knee injury, and tears his ACL. And it was a surreal experience to see a guy who's worked so hard, who's having an unbelievable game on an unbelievable platform, and that's why he is where he is right now in the NBA, because he was that good. But you know, I say it's one of the worst because, you know, you have the opportunity to beat a team in the top 10 at a school like Drexel, and you know, you got a backcourt for the ages. You know, you got three out of the top, you know, probably 10 players in the school's history on one team right there. But Dame goes down, and, you know, we didn't know at the time that he tore his ACL. We were hoping for the best. But Dame tears his ACL, and, you know, he was out for the year. But fast forward to the best moment, and this is really what coaching is kind of in a nutshell, and how it's such a whirlwind is 2 days later, we're supposed to play Alabama in the Garden. And, you know, we're down Dame. You know, we had a redshirt freshman, Tavon Allen, who's going to have to come in and start now for him. And Tavon didn't really have that much experience at the time. You know, and it's Alabama. It's the SEC. These guys are huge. And, you know, our guys fought. Game goes into one overtime, you know, back and forth. Game goes into a second overtime, back and forth again. Third overtime in Madison Square Garden. Now, keep in mind, Duke and Arizona are supposed to play after us. People are getting mad. We're getting booed in Madison Square Garden because Duke had Jabari Parker at the time, and everybody wanted to see Duke versus Arizona. But we wound up winning the game, and it just showed me, like, you know, how much of a whirlwind coaching is, and how you can go from the lowest to lows to, you know, losing one of your top players, a kid that given everything he had to the program, and, you know, just was in such a great position to have an unbelievable season to, you know, 2 days later, now you're beating an SEC team in Madison Square Garden.
Wow. That is the best and the worst all together. You talked about it a little bit. Maybe it was the answer to it. Like, what was the most stressful situation you have faced? I know you kind of mentioned, you know, not being retained at Drexel, and now you got to figure out what to do. But, like, what was your most stressful situation you think you faced?
Actually, this is funny. And we're on Unmasked here, so I guess everything's kind of open right now, Lamar, right? Everything's kind of open. So one of the most stressful situations I've ever been in coaching was I had just gotten married in May, and me and my wife waited till June to go on our honeymoon, because once school ends at Drexel in June, in the second week of June, and then there's like about a 2-week break before we start summer session. So, you know, my wife is a teacher, so we said we'll go on our honeymoon during that time. You know, we'll wait it out. We'll go on our honeymoon. So we're on our honeymoon, and Brew calls me, and one of the guys I recruited, DMV area guy, Terrell Allen, from the DMV, from DeMatha, unbelievable kid, unbelievable family. You know, there was a problem with, you know, something with his application, and we're trying to get him in school. And he was no problems in terms of academics, unbelievable, you know, grades, DeMatha kid. It was kind of just a mix-up. Now I'm on my honeymoon. Now I'm there with my wife, and I'm thinking I'm not working the whole week. And now, you know, I'm writing emails, I'm on calls, and we're just making sure we do everything we can to get this kid into school for summer session, because, you know, and you know how it is, Lamar, for a kid who's coming out of high school and going into college, like summer session, you know, that's big for them. That's their introduction into college, you know, and we didn't want that to have to be delayed. They were looking forward to it. You know, but that was extremely, extremely stressful because, you know, number one, he was somebody we recruited really hard, had a great relationship with his family. You know, like I said, unbelievable people who did everything the right way, you know, throughout the recruiting process. And, you know, we just wanted to make sure that we did everything right by them. We did everything right by them because they had earned that. They had earned that from us. But, yeah, being on that honeymoon, and having to go with that was a little stressful.
Oh, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. This might take a spin a little bit. Like, what is the strangest thing a player has done outside of the basketball court?
See, I need Jeff or Brew for one of these questions right here. They'd have a great answer for me. We might have to go back to this one. I got to think about this one. I got my answer. I got my answer for the other one that you asked.
Go ahead. I want to hear this. Go ahead.
So the question was like, what was the question?
It was, do you ever find that there are things about you that people might misunderstand?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I always thought about myself that I think people misunderstood, and this goes back into recruiting a little bit, and I know you can kind of understand where I'm coming from on this. When you're from a certain area, especially an area that's populated with a lot of players like Philadelphia is, people kind of think that, okay, he just recruits Philadelphia. Like that's his area. That's what he's here for. Or like what I talked about before, when you're trying to get back in, to college or something, and you're interviewing for jobs, and that might be a coach's, negative about you. Well, you can only recruit one area, which I think is misunderstood at times, because I've only recruited one guy from our area the entire time I was at Drexel. And all the other guys I recruited were from, Boston, DC, Richmond, Virginia. So I think that's something that, I thought was misunderstood about me. But I also think it's misunderstood about a lot of coaches in college that are from, the DMV or New York or Philly, or New England. A lot of guys think that that's the only place that they can recruit, but I think that's far from the truth.
It's definitely far from the truth, man. Like, and I asked this question because you've been with the Brew family for a long time. And then it's not that you're interviewing for a job or you're asking, saying, hey, Bashir, he's not leaving. But if you had a chance to work for anyone or pick someone's brain, you've been on a lot of Zoom, so you hear a lot of these guys, head coaches and things of that nature. Like, who would you like to sit down with, pick their brain, and like figure out how they think? Who are some of those coaches that you see?
Yeah, I think the first person that that comes to mind right away when you ask that question is Buzz Williams. I've kind of tried to study him a lot actually during this quarantine, because not only do I like what certain guys do on the court, I look at what they do off the court. I look at how do they motivate their team? How do they get through to their players? What type of other things do they do outside of basketball that really gets their guys going and builds that connection with them? So he, for sure, is number one of somebody that, I would want to sit down with and kind of talk to. The second, and this is kind of something that is starting to become, I think, very popular in college, as it has been in the NBA, is I would want to sit down with Todd Golden at University of San Francisco. I've just heard a ton of stuff about how they use analytics and, to their advantage. Like, I know a big thing this year is they fouled a team in the BYU game. I believe they were up 2 at the time, and they intentionally fouled one of BYU's players. It's something they had talked about as a staff throughout the year, I guess. And, it was the right time to do it. And, and he had the balls to do it. Not many coaches would have the balls to foul somebody intentionally up 2. So I thought that was really creative. And, and not only that, just, what other creative stuff does this guy have right now? Because, that's something that kind of really piqued my interest and, really spoke to me a lot about him.
And what's interesting, that staff, man, when he was at Columbia, Golden, Colin Hartman, and General Manager Kobe Altman were the assistant coaches at Columbia together, which is amazing staff. How all three of them, Coleman, an assistant at Oklahoma, head coach now, Cal Smith is out at head coach at Washington. I mean, that's just a terrific staff, and you don't see that a whole lot of times.
Yeah.
Just to throw you for a spin a little bit, because I know you're a basketball junkie, but what movie or TV show title best describes your week?
Best movie title?
Movie title or TV show?
Or TV show? So I would go with movie. I'm going to go with movie title. And I would call it The Tornado because I have a soon-to-be 2-year-old daughter. She's 22 months. And another daughter who will be 3 next week. So right now during quarantine, I'm home a lot more than I'm used to. And they're seeing me a lot more than they're used to too. They actually just went back to daycare a couple weeks ago, but every day is like a spinning cycle. Every single day is like a spinning. I never know what they're gonna do, and half the time I never know what the week is gonna bring for me in terms of, are we going back? Are we gonna be able to get back with our guys in practice? So the tornado, and my wife is in that tornado too. She yelling at me today because supposedly I messed up her headphones. I don't know how. She ruined her bike ride, I guess, but luckily she just left the room because she would probably get on me about this too. But the tornado is definitely one that I'm going to go with.
Hey, Bob, I feel you on that. I feel you on that one. What's your favorite word or phrase you like to use?
My favorite word, actually, it's a phrase that I adopted when I was down at IMG. And a lot of people talk about like, what's your coaching philosophy? What would your culture be like? And I came up with this thing called EAT, and EAT stands for energy, attitude, and toughness. And it's something that down at IMG, it was an interesting dynamic. We had players that, were big time Division I players that were going to Purdue and St. Louis and were in USA basketball. But we also had other guys who had, aspirations of playing D1, but might have been a D2 and a D3 player. And I told those guys, I said, the only way you're going to get to where you think you're going to go is if we win. Nobody takes guys at Division I that play on losing teams. It's very rare. You better be an unbelievable talent that's just at a high school where they just have nobody around you. Like, I'm thinking of like an Anthony Davis situation. Like his high school team wasn't really that good. So we talked about bringing energy every single day because at IMG, you need to bring that because you're in the gym 6 days a week working out. There's no like, oh, the gym's not open today or it's raining out. The football team's got to get in the gym. So you need to bring unbelievable energy every day and take advantage of, being in an area and on a campus that's tailor-made to get guys better. The second is your attitude, and you hear this a lot. It's something that you can control every day. So if you're coming in here with a bad attitude that, last night I didn't have it, I'm going to walk through practice today, or are you going to approach it with the attitude like, all right, I sucked last night, so I'm going to pick it up today, so I'm ready for the next game. And in terms of toughness, it's just something that, like you said, playing for Brew and playing with Bosch and now coaching with Bosch, that, toughness wins. Toughness wins anywhere you go, and it's a skill. Toughness is a skill now, and it's a skill that now that we look for in recruiting. You want tough guys. So that energy, attitude, toughness, EAT mentality is something that as a coach I really preach to my guys.
Great answer, man. I like to eat. I like that. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
What I would say is guys always talk about, they want to move up. Guys want to move up. Guys want to get bigger jobs. You're in the, SEC, the SEC, you want to be in the ACC, Big East, but right now you're in the Atlantic 10 or you're in the NEC. You know, and one thing that Brew used to always tell me, like, you know, you want to move up and you want to get a better job. And, you know, if you want to do that, guess what? We have to win. So do the best job for where you are. Do the best job for that head coach who you're with. Don't think about where your next job is going to be. Don't think about where, you know, you're looking to go next, or, you know, who might get fired and what jobs might open up. Do the best job for where you are. Because if you do that, and this kind of goes back to what I talked about before with the whole eat mentality, that if you win, everybody's going to win. So if that head coach wins, everybody on the staff is going to win. And all those players are going to win, and everybody loves a winner. You know, so kind of going off that, be where your feet are. Be where your feet are, and don't worry about where your feet are going.
Love that. I love that, man. Like, Bobby, you've never been a self-promoter. You just work. If you had to choose 3 adjectives to describe yourself, which would you choose?
Passionate. Passionate would be my first one. This has always been my dream to be a coach. I knew that the minute I enrolled at Drexel University. So passion would be my first. Second would be, you know, high energy. You know, it's something I try to bring every day, is really just bring my energy to practice. And it's something we really preach at Wagner. And third, it's, you know, I would say, and it's something I've really worked on recently, is just positivity, having a positive outlook on everything. Because I've been to the lowest points in my career at times, and there's probably going to be even lower points. But just seeing the bigger picture and being positive on, you know, what could happen as long as you do work hard is something that I would say as well.
Great stuff, man. Great stuff. What person and or event has had the most influence on your life?
You know, I would say, you know, in terms of person, my father has had the most impact on my life. You know, where I'm from in Northeast Philadelphia, you know, we're one of those areas of Philly who, you know, we're not North Philly, we're not South Philly, we're not known for basketball. You know, it's up there in the Northeast. They're to be honest, they're known for, you know, bookies, bartenders, and you know, gambling type of thing. So, you know, it's something that, you know, going to play big time basketball at a place like Roman and stuff like that, I never even thought of growing up until a certain point where my father he really gave me the opportunity to experience things like going to play in the Sunny Hill League, you know, when I was younger, going to play in leagues like Positive Image, you know, places that, to be honest, Lamar, people from my area where I'm from, they won't go there. They won't go there to play. Number one, because they're scared. They're scared of the atmosphere, you know, and they're scared to go in those parts of the city. And my dad was one of those guys where he was like, I don't care where we're going or who's going to be there. You're going to play against the best. You know, you're going to get an education where, you know, you see a different culture. You know, you just don't see what we have in Northeast Philly where we live. You're going to see different parts of the city. You're going to see different people, and you're going to learn about them, and you're going to interact with them, and you're going to develop friendships with them, you know, and that's, you know, what I did growing up. You know, so he was just one of those fathers that, you know, took me to every game, took me to every camp, you know, just put everything in front of me to allow me to be successful. And nothing stood in his way, whether it was, you know, good or bad, because I got my ass kicked at some of those places sometimes, especially early on. I would get my ass kicked, and he would just be like, I don't care if you get your ass kicked. It's only going to make you better. And it eventually did. So, you know, that is one of those things, and kind of leading me into the event that's really kind of changed me, and being able to do what I'm doing right now, and it's because of my father, is going to Roman Catholic. It was a situation where I said not many people from my area went down. Roman is downtown, Broad and Vine. I had to take a 50-minute train ride to get there every day, and nobody thought I could play there. And when I started as a freshman, people were surprised. And that event of him, telling me, listen, Roman is the place for you to go, because it's going to be able to get you to where you want to go. And I don't care if you have to take a 50-minute train ride back and forth every single day. This is the place you're going to go. And Roman allowed me to diversify myself, and really see, people in different lights from different areas, all over the city, South Jersey, North Philly, South Philly, Roxborough area. It really allowed me to diversify myself, with people, and that allowed me to become a better person. Something that I think, kids don't get a chance to do, and they don't educate themselves. And that's one of the ways I educated myself, was just going away from the norm and going to something that at first might have been uncomfortable, and then just made it a comfortable situation.
Awesome, Bobby. Man, I love that answer, man, and hopefully these young guys can understand that, and I appreciate those jewels you dropping. And I like to end on this question, knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self to prepare for as an assistant coach?
I think the one thing that I would tell myself to prepare for, to be a better assistant coach, would really just to really, branch out a little bit. When I started as an assistant coach, I was just focused on recruiting. I mean, I kind of talked about, how our staff was kind of set up, and, I was young, I was able to travel and go all over, to really go see guys. And that helped me a lot, and helped me to build a lot of relationships and, bring in some good players. But really branching out in terms of, like you said, I played for Brew and I went right into coaching for Brew. So those 11 years, that I was at Drexel, that's all I knew was Drexel University basketball. This is how we do things. This is how we do things on offense. This is how we do things on defense. Branch out, go learn from other guys, go get other ideas, and then bring them back, to your head coach or your boss, and just say, oh, well, I was at Temple practice, or, I was at Rutgers practice, and, Steve Peichel did this interesting thing with their shell drill. What do you think about it? Or, I think that, I was watching, the Rockets last night, and they ran this play for Harden. Maybe we could run it for Franz. It's getting him going downhill to his left. Those were things that as a young assistant coach, I never did. And now I just think that, you gotta be good at everything. You can't just be good at one thing. If you want to be a head coach, at some point in your career, you have to be able to do every single thing, on the court, off the court, in recruiting, on campus. And that's one thing that, I would definitely tell my younger self to do.
Awesome answer, Bobby. Well, look, man, I want to thank you again for being a guest on the show and being unmasked. Is there anything you want to say to the viewers before we go?
Lamar, the one thing I just want to say is I just want to thank you for having me on. I've caught some of the, earlier episodes with a lot of guys that I know. It's an honor to be a part of it, and to be able to sit down with you. And I appreciate, everything you always do for me, coaching and helping me grow and come up in the business. So just want to thank you.
Nah, man. Hey, Bobby, you're welcome. And I thank you, man. Great words. I appreciate that. And I only wish, I think the best to happen for you. I think you got a terrific future, and I'm sure you'll take advantage of that. And I definitely be following. So, thank you, viewers, for watching another great show. Stay tuned for the next guest as we get them unmasked. See you next time, and stay safe.